Hi all, Rick here. Originally I'd planned a different video for this weekend, but Photoshop corrupted my save by merging all the layers down, so that's a fun new ruination to have visited upon my workflow. Anyway, moving on. This video is a look into all the Star Trek living ships that have appeared, and it's really not that many, so I'm stretching the definition somewhat to include both sentient or organic spacefaring vessels. While there are plenty of cosmozoa on which you could hitch a ride, these are not spacecraft. I'm looking for either purpose-built or grown vessels that either have emergent sentience or ones that are technically or partially organic in nature. Starting with a bit of an unknown, the Breen. Nothing we've seen on screen suggests that the Breen use fully organic vessels. But a line uttered in Star Trek Voyager suggests that they have indeed been witnessed using bioships of some description in their history. While their cruisers don't appear organic in the Dominion War, it's hard to tell what's going on beneath the surface, and the Breen themselves remain enigmatic for centuries. It could be that their ships incorporated some form of biotech, so for now I'm putting them on this list as a sort of honourable mention. Alice, the shuttlecraft 2, is definitely a sentient spaceship, and a malevolent one too it seems, but I'm hesitant to include her in this video as she's basically an AI in a vessel. Another mention I'm going to throw in here is the emergent intelligence that was developed in Star Trek The Next Generation from the computer core of the Enterprise D. There's some debate as to whether or not this life form that grew within the circuits of the Enterprise was sparked by some other influence, or if it's actually the random emergence of a life form based on the unprecedented outcomes of a complex system such as a starship's computer. I thought I'd mention it here, but the Enterprise itself was not sentient, and the creature created was not a spaceship, as far as we know. An interesting topic nonetheless. Starfleet has been experimenting on and off with organic matter in their ships and similar concepts. One of the first things we witnessed was the inclusion of bioneural circuitry in ships like the Intrepid class and later models of Starfleet ship. These gel packs performed the same computational tasks as isolinear chip arrays, but were more robust in areas of creativity. This sort of tech made for faster processing and allowed for the evolution of things like the Doctor's program in a more natural way, as well as the ships like Voyager reacting much faster. In turn, this meant that systems like reactive shielding and the constantly adjusting variable warp geometry were more feasible, as it took less computing resources to manage them when run through bioneural tech. It did come with downsides too, however. As basically bundles of neurons, they could both decay and get ill. However, these risks were still worth it. After all, organic or not, any system is vulnerable to malfunction. Photoshop. Starfleet's involvement in adding organic principles or tech into their ships did not end there. By the 26th century, we've got the Enterprise J, which is a colossal ship that apocryphally was said to have been grown in part. While it does seem to be entirely metal alloys of various sci-fi natures, parts of it were basically formed from a precursor of programmable matter that could be coaxed into developing into a particular shape. This also provided the ships with a system of molecular reconstruction, allowing for its hull to form things from memory like additional phaser placements or simply turn transparent. While this is not organic, it was clearly seeking to mimic the variability possible in nature with additional functions like self-healing. By the 31st century, most Starfleet vessels did include organic components, likely a continual development of the bioneural circuitry snaking throughout the vessel. Another worthy mention is Zora, the artificial intelligence that was introduced in the ship USS Discovery after it took on board a large quantity of information from an unknown alien sphere. This prompted the vessel to develop a sentience over time, and after some teething problems, it took on the name Zora and acted as Discovery's mind. While it could manage the ship's systems by itself, it showed that it worked more effectively alongside a crew, and that it actually cared for its occupants. While not an organic vessel, the integrated mind, I think, quantifies Discovery to be a living ship of sorts, and a unique life form in of itself. glad it got its happy ending by being downgraded, then dumped into an isolated nebula for an indefinable century to await a future that may or may not come to pass. Now, why do I consider Zora alive and not Alice? Well, that comes down to the fact that, simply, we know a lot more about Zora than Alice, and the key point Discovery tried to hammer home about Zora was that she was a truly aware and alive AI. Alice still has too much mystery around her, but that also made her a good villain. Now, outside of Starfleet, we also have the Species 8472 bioship, which fits the criteria of being completely organic. Most of what we know on their development comes from Apocrypha, which states that they are grown from larval-like pods. I have covered the bioship specifications and abilities in a recent video, which is what then led to this topic, so you can check that out after this one if you're interested. Still not the video I had planned today, but no, I'm over it, never mind. The bioships even shared DNA markers with Species 8472, suggesting a joint evolution, and the pilot and vessel were telepathically linked. However, the bioships, despite possessing processing bundles of nerves, did not seem to be independently intelligent. Their organic nature gave them an adaptability and uniqueness that outpaced even the Borg, and they were some of the most powerful vessels encountered by Starfleet, which we will see is almost a theme. Another vessel we encounter is the nicknamed Star Jellies. However, these are also rather mysterious. We've got no idea where they come from, but the fact that they can fabricate themselves into starships seems to suggest that they were deliberately grown to facilitate space travel for a crew despite being wholly capable of independent action. These creatures were also incredibly powerful, with their ability to fabricate anything from pure energy. But, most importantly, they showed intelligence and strong emotional states, from compassion to revenge and affection for others of their kind. The first alien encounter for the USS Enterprise D, the Star Jellies remain an amazing discovery. Theories go on to suggest that these creatures were indeed made as living mounts for a long since extinct alien culture, and now they are all that remains, going on about their lives as independent creatures. As fully organic, these lifeforms do have a life cycle in Apocrypha, from birth, being nurtured, and into death, which highlights another trade-off for a living vessel, that being organic likely means growing old. The biggest example of a living ship we find is named Gontu, and also an encounter by the Enterprise D. Gontu, without ambiguity, was created thousands of years ago by an alien culture that has gone extinct. This living ship also has emotions and intelligence, which proved to be to its detriment, when the isolation of being without a crew for millennia led to it hanging around the imminent supernova to end it all. Fortunately, it finds a new friend and pilot in the form of the Betazoid, Tam Elbrun, and the two set off together to explore. With the abilities to reform its own internal layout and support a crew, Gontu is probably the only living ship we see in Star Trek which aligns with all the definitions thrown around. It is organic, it is alive and aware, and it most definitely is a ship and quite a rare find. Looking at all these discoveries, we can see that a common trait seems to be that organic vessels are incredibly powerful in Star Trek, which honestly is kind of backwards. They are depicted as being faster in reaction time and more resilient than most space-age metals, which is not really the case in real life. Where they do shine is often in the creativity sphere or adaptability, and blending these strengths with the consistency of artificial systems allows for a focused approach. It's from this interaction that the amplified power levels tend to emerge, and give drive to things like Starfleet in continuing down this road of research. I enjoy the biotech development path that Starfleet explores, as one of many routes, but so long as I don't go all Borgy about it, I think it's a really interesting avenue of sci-fi to look at. It is strange though to see Trek often depicting organic ships as usually better than others. However, it's also about finding those strange new lifeforms, regardless of when or where they emerge. Living ships is a cool concept too, in the way that it allows the personification and interaction with the vessel itself, drawing a stronger connection to the ship where you can equate emotions and temperament to it, turning it into more of a partner than a tool, as emotional creatures we tend to do. how many people name their car or refer to a piece of technology as being stubborn or temperamental. So aside from the power and abilities displayed, I think the real allure of a sentient ship is the idea of turning a ship into a crew member itself. I've been Rick, and I'll see you next time for another lore breakdown. Until then, thanks again, and goodbye.